Mike McGrath, B-roll, take two.
Okay. Mike, tell me about, excuse me, tell me about room 7.
Oh, room 7. Now, let's have to back up to the year before this. This is the last year that we just talked about, and that's what I'm drawing. But back to room 7. I have to back up to the night of the Sante raid, when Colonel Bull Simons led the special forces into Hanoi, invaded a prison called Sante to try to rescue POWs. This was November 20th, 1970, and it was a surprise raid, and we had made massive efforts to hide this raid, and the guys came over from Thailand and invaded the prison to rescue these 65 POWs that were in an isolated prison, poorly defended. Now, those guys had been moved into another camp along with me. I came out of one camp, they came in from another camp. We came in from different camps into a brand new prison called Camp Faith. They were trying to improve our conditions. The torture had stopped. They were just trying to improve our conditions. But this raid surprised them. Our guys got in, checked the prison, nobody there, and made their way back to Thailand without incident. But the Vietnamese were afraid. Here the Americans had invaded Hanoi and they couldn't stop them. So they moved us all into big rooms in downtown Hanoi in a section of the Hanoi Hilton, which we had never seen before. And we determined that this section was 7 big rooms. A room could hold 56 people. And there were concrete slabs we slept on. And if you've seen the movie Papillon, remember the old original movie? They had these great big slabs, and people slept on these slabs with irons and manacles. This was built by the French-built Papillon prison, and this one in the 1890s. So this was a mirror image of Papillon. So they moved us into these big rooms. I had 56 men in room 2. There was a courtyard, and around the courtyard was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Now, room 7 is the one you asked me about. That's why I'm skipping ahead so fast. That room 7 ended up with a bunch of troublemakers. These guys had esprit de corps, resistance. They had caused the Vietnamese problems for years. A lot of famous people. Jim Stockdale, Medal of Honor recipient. Bud Day, and Jim Castler, and Air Force aces. There were some people in there that were just fighter pilots, and they were tough, and they caused problems. And so in later years, one of the senior officers asked me, Mike, as a historian, can you put together the names of all of the 40 or 50 people in my room? And I said, yeah, I can do it. But I did it. I put it together. And then it's the history of all these guys came out of what all they had done. I wrote that history down, and I published it as one of my fact papers of who they were and all the things they'd accomplished. And some of those guys were jerked out and thrown into tough prisons in solitary for a year just for being leaders. The Vietnamese did not like leaders. So the room 7 was just kind of a famous room with a lot of tough guys.
Tell me about the famous night of the Christmas event.
Well, that was caused by the men in room 7. We were November 23rd, 3 days after the raid. All the POWs were brought from the zoo and the annex and not dog patch, but from different prisons, and we were all moved downtown and 350 of us were put in these big rooms. So everybody was in one prison. They had guns everywhere. They were all pointing at the sky. They were all looking at the sky, expecting the Americans to come at any minute. So it was heavily defended.
I'm going to stop you. I'm sorry, Mike. We're having Bill, are you hearing all that?
Is it snapping?
Yeah.
It's also slowly lowering.
Oh, I don't think so. Okay, you can tighten it. I'll quit wiggling.
Yeah, because I'm hearing it in the sound. Is it maybe your elbows on there or something?
Yeah. Okay, I'll just keep it light.
We could put a C-stand on
No, I'll just keep it light. I won't touch.
Okay. Sorry, sir.
Now, is it okay if I use my hands to talk?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so and so November 23rd, we moved into the big rooms. We immediately started communication, established our chain of command, who was senior ranking of the 300 people, and Stockdale was no longer in charge, but he turned it over to the next senior man, and we all settled in. Well, a month or two later, November goes through, and then Christmas is coming up, and Room 7 said, we want church services. And the Vietnamese said, no church services. You can't have church services. Said, we want church services. They wouldn't do it. So they did it anyway. And the Vietnamese were all mad and yelling. So the next thing Room 7 did is they started singing Christmas carols, and then they started singing God Bless America. And you could hear this across the camp. Even though the rooms were kind of isolated from each other, you could hear it. Well, then the room next door starts singing, God Bless America. And around us, we said, well, if they can sing, we can sing. So then here's 56 people, we start a chorus. Well, this was a chorus that was loud enough to be heard outside the prison walls. And to the Vietnamese, this was a riot. All of us, they're screaming, they're banging on the doors, and they're demanding we stop, and we won't stop. We're singing. And all because of Room 7, who started this thing. And so we were having a good old time, we're laughing, and they were getting madder and madder. And about 30 minutes later, bam, the iron doors swing open, and in comes, in all the rooms simultaneously, troops came in with fixed bayonets. And they had these pith helmets with the chin strap down, tightened down around their things. They had combat leggings, from their boots were laced up, and they had fixed bayonets, and they were mad. And all of a sudden, that is a scary thing to see guys charging at you with a fixed bayonet. Well, they backed us all up against the wall, and they had a guy with a fixed bayonet right in your stomach. And we were sitting there just like this. No shirt on, because it's tropics. And I had a bayonet in my stomach. And I joke about it now, and I say, the Christmas song, Silent Night, has a whole new meaning now. Because that camp went deathly silent in about 2 or 3 minutes. There wasn't a peep out of that camp. They had us all at bayonet and said, do not move, do not speak. And we just nodded our head and didn't move. Now, later they lowered the bayonets and left, but in their mind, they stopped a riot. In our mind, they stopped a church service and a song fest. So, the clash of two cultures. So that was the troublemakers of Room 7 that you mentioned.
Do you, can you sing a little bit of God Bless America?
No, I can't sing a note. I just sing along with songs. I just sing along with everybody else. But since I can't sing, my first roommate spoke German. But he was in the occupation forces following World War II, and he had a German girlfriend, so he knows German drinking songs. So I can sing a German drinking song, okay? All right. And this is in German, which I have never seen written. I'd hate to see it written, because it was scary. Da wo die blaue Isar fließt, wo mit Gott grüßt die Christ, liegt meiner schöner Münchener Stadt, die ihresgleichen nicht hat. In München steht ein Hofbräuhaus, 1, 2, Sofa, dort hat so mancher braver Mann, 1, 2, Sofa, which means 1, 2, 3, drink. 1, 2, 3, drink. So now I can sing more songs in German than I can in English.
Well, let's follow that line for a moment. Tell me about Hanoi University.
Hanoi University. Well, first you take 350, there's 476 pilots captured up there. And no Army troops captured in North Vietnam. And my experience is all with North Vietnam. So you got over 400 pilots, air crew, highly educated, high esprit de corps, and you got brains. But for 6 years, they never gave you a book, a paper, a pencil, a pair of shoes, a pair of socks, a bed. You didn't, no Bible. In 6 years, we didn't see anything.
Hold your thought 1 second. In 6 years, you didn't see anything. I'm going to try to see if I can tighten this.
Okay.
If that'll make a difference.
Well, it must be really sensitive on your sound.
Yeah, it picks it all up.
Yeah, there's a great big handle.
Yeah. We'll see if that does it.
Yeah, it feels pretty good. I think that's a lot solider now that you got that tightened up.
Yeah, it was loose, so that'll help. Where did we leave off?
We're talking about Hanoi University.
Yes.
And so if you have all these people with all these brains, for everything from an astronaut to doctors and lawyers to pilots, and you got these smart people, what do? You have no book, no paper, no pencil, and you can't even communicate. So we use tap code, but that's another subject of communication. But what you did, you pulled out information from your roommates. If they studied thermodynamics, you learned the first, the second, the third law of thermodynamics. And if they'd studied architecture or even poetry, like the cremation of Sam McGee, or or Shakespeare, to be or not to be, that is a question, whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. So I was learning Shakespearean soliloquies from kids who had learned it in high school and college, but I was keeping my mind active. And then I started memorizing the names of all the POWs in the system as you found them out. In the end, I ended up with 350 names of all the POWs. There's Will Abbott, Joe Abbott, Bob Abbott, Everett Alvarez, Atterbury, Austin, Bailey, Barca, Barnett, and I just get faster and faster with my rhythm until I had 350 names. But the university part for me was, I had a roommate that spoke German, because his parents were German in World War II, and he'd been in Korea, but he spoke German. So I had 2 years at Hanoi University speaking German and memorizing, how to say die, der, den, die, nominative, genitive, dative, and accusative. I was learning all the grammatical rules of German without seeing a book, but I was learning them phonetically. And after 2 years, we had an escape attempt. There was a big mix-up, a break-up in our mixing. They mixed us up, and I ended up with a roommate that spoke Spanish. So for the next 4 years, I attended Hanoi University and learned Spanish. Ahora hablo español. Yo tengo fluidez en español. So I became fluent in Spanish, which I later used for a 3-year tour in South America, speaking my Hanoi University Spanish.
Tell the story of applying for that, and they said, well...
Oh, well, because you're in this Hanoi University, you memorize everything. You become very disciplined, and I just kind of learned how to study languages and how to use the rules and make it all fit and how to learn it. So later, 10, 12 years later, I wanted a job in South America as an attaché, a naval attaché. So I had to go through a State Department language test. And I went to the Pentagon, and they lined me up with a language test to test my ability at languages. And they give you a phony test. They give you this set of rules and said, here's a new language, you've never seen it. You have 15 minutes to learn all the rules. Like verbs start with Z, and nouns end with X, and adverbs end with T. And they give you these crazy rules. You got 15 minutes to study, they take everything away, and they give you the test. And you have to use what you learn in 15 minutes to decipher a whole new language. And anyway, I scored very highly because I had learned to concentrate, and I'd learned rules, and I concentrated, and I got it, so I scored a very high test. And they said, oh, you're eligible to take Chinese, Slovakian, Greek, Russian. What language do you want to take? But being a Navy pilot, I said, Spanish. And they said, well, how many years in the classroom have you had in Spanish? I said, none. I've never had a Spanish assignment in a school in my life. I'm telling the truth. I don't think Hanoi University was quite what they were thinking about. And they said, well, you have to take the full month, a 6-month course in Spanish because you don't have any Spanish background. And I said, thank you. And so for the next 6 months, I went to museums and operas and just enjoyed Washington, D.C. and improved my Spanish with the Defense Language Institute Spanish course. So that's how I ended up speaking Spanish and using my Hanoi University Spanish in Quito, Ecuador, as a naval attaché.
Beautiful. Fantastic.
But everybody did that. Everybody was learning, so I wasn't alone. I mean, everybody was learning subjects of all types.
Talk to me about the camaraderie and what it means to you and what it meant to you.
Well, you live with somebody for years and you become very close friends. You learn their weaknesses, their strengths, their family, their names of their kids, and their dreams and desires, and you become very, very close with people. Unless they're irritable, if you can also make some enemies that you don't mean, but you can get cabin fever, by the way. And after a year of some guy doing a habit pattern, like maybe he taps or something, he does something that drives you nuts, you can get cabin fever. But some of my closest friends in life were made there, the Air Force pilots and Marine pilots and Navy pilots. We're still close friends today, and we've been going to reunions together now for 46 years. We'll have a reunion this year. It'll be our 47th, we call them freedom years. So 47 years of freedom. And so the camaraderie and the friendships I made there are still as strong today, stronger than a fraternity or a university or high school group. The camaraderie we built there is stronger than any of those things.
Mike, you live in a beautiful home in a beautiful part of the country. You have good friends. You keep the history of all the POWs. You're a healthy, happy, energetic, you polish your Porsche, I don't care, individual. And it's the case with all of the other former POWs who I've met. I have yet to meet someone I walk away and say, oh, that's kind of a bitter guy or anything. To what do you attribute the health, the positive attitude, and the positive outlook of all you?
Well, I guess you go back to, we're in Hanoi. If somebody got down, you refused to let him get down. You got him back up, you told him dirty jokes, you put tricks on him, you did humor, and you wouldn't let him get depressed. You wouldn't let him get things. You kept each other buoyed up, and you kept a positive attitude that we may be 20 years, but we're going to get out of here. And we always had bets. Like I'm the guy that bet, we're going to get out of here in a year, and the other guy, I'll bet you $100. Well, I had one classmate, for 6 years, he kept winning $100 bets with all his friends. They had to pay off when we got home too. So you have the optimist and the pessimist, but you have this attitude of helping each other, and you build this friendship. And interestingly, when we got out, over 90% of all the pilots elected to stay in the military for at least a 20 or 20 plus year career. And we ended up with 27 flag rank admirals and generals, even a 4-star general we got. We ended up with 8 men who were awarded the recipients of the Medal of Honor. We had guys with Navy crosses, Air Force crosses, a highly decorated crew. And most people stayed in for a successful Navy and Air Force and Marine Corps career. So their attitudes were positive. You asked about the success. We continued this, and we all wanted to continue to serve our country. And many continued on to serve in other conflicts, like Grenada. And we went down in Grenada and Desert Storm, and a lot of people stayed in for many, many years and continued to serve their country.
Fantastic. Talk to me about the battle behind bars.
The battle when
the way you fought every day. You could win little battles, is the way it's been described to me.
Little battles, I said they were basically cat and mouse. You're always playing cat and mouse. You have a communist, aggressive enemy that's out to defeat all of us, especially pilots, because we're resistive, and they want propaganda. So they'll do anything to destroy us and destroy our morale and try to give us a phony confession or write an apology for the United States, or condemn the president or condemn the war. But they're all using it for they're after us to break us down through torture, through whatever they can, and the means that the end, just in their mind, if they get propaganda and get a photograph or a confession that's false, the end justifies the means. It doesn't matter that they tortured you to get it or it's false. They feed it to our press. Our press then puts it out to the public, and they've got their propaganda coup. So the press doesn't verify it. They can't. They're unscrupulous. They'll publish anything. So to them, it's a propaganda war, and for us, it's a war against them to prevent them from gaining propaganda. And in my case, I stuck the name, rank, serial number for 3 days, and my back was broken, my knee was out of joint, My arm was broken and dislocated, and then in torture they dislocated this shoulder and this elbow. So they dislocated those by taking the Vietnamese rope trick, arms behind your back, over your shoulders, dislocate your shoulders, and after 3 days saying, I'll talk. I broke. And then I told them crazy things that didn't make any sense. They weren't tactically important. They weren't weapons, and they weren't anything important. But I never, after 15 days, they finally left me alone. I never let them take a picture of me or never wrote anything down until the 15th day. And the 15th day, with no sleep, and I was completely in delirium. And I was going to die pretty quick because I couldn't go to the bathroom. I couldn't move. I was on the floor, and I'm just trying to hold my broken arm. And I said, I gotta talk. I gotta write down some answers. So I wrote down some nonsense answers, and then they left me alone. So in my mind, I won that little war. I didn't give them any propaganda, and no matter what they did to me, I resisted. But each of us had those little wars, and they were after all of us. And they're looking for the weak people. If they can get a weak person that says, okay, I'll talk, or okay, I'll write something for you, they keep getting more and more. Well, you wrote this, you must write more. Well, you wrote this, you must write more. Well, now you must go through on camera. So they'll keep increasing advantage of you as long as you cave into them. And the secret of our little wars is don't cave into them. Take the tough punishment they give you, because if you do give in, they're going to take you down a path. What they're looking at is to isolate a weak person away from everybody else. No communication, no chance of guidance from him, that he will cooperate with them and collaborate with them. And in the end, they did get 11 pilots to collaborate, and those people were released early to come home, and we haven't spoken to them once in the last 50 years. They don't exist to us because they collaborated with the enemy and bought their freedom by writing and doing propaganda for the enemy.
And you are the historian for the POWs. You keep the mailing lists. You keep the. How does it? It must particularly make you proud as you scan the lists of names and you keep. And also, there must be a sadness as you're losing friends. Talk to me about this.
Well, overall in the whole Vietnam War, we got everybody out of China. We got them out of Laos. We got them out of Cambodia. We got them out of South Vietnam, North Vietnam. 662 of us came out alive. Since we were repatriated in early '73, over 150 have died, and now we're dying at about the rate of 1 per week. So it's getting pretty sad to see some of your friends that were healthy with you 40 years ago now are coming down with problems. And so that's kind of sad. And so today there's 450 of us alive, and we're still having our freedom reunions, and we still have our friend Ross Perot. 6 months ago, we were all down at Ross Perot's ranch. So 450 people, wives and 125 of us, and about another 125 wives and family. We all sat down with Ross Perot and had another great dinner at Ross Perot's ranch and another reunion. So we're still getting together when we can, and we still have great friends like Ross Perot and others who have helped us. Richard Nixon, we go to the Nixon Library. They love us. They've invited us back. So for our 50th, our 60th Freedom Reunion, we're going to go back to Ross Perot's. We're going to be older, but we're going to be at the Nixon Library in about 3 years from now.
Beautiful.
Celebrating freedom.
Beautiful, sir. Carrie, what is in your notes?
I didn't know if you wanted to talk about him and Red communicating with the.
Oh yeah, I wanted to talk. We all there's a lot talked about the tap code, but you also figured out a way among you to communicate, and you tell the story of Red McDaniel being the other side. This was during the escape attempt.
Well, right at the beginning, in July of 1973, when I was broken up, I'm holding my broken arm, I hear this on the wall. Shaving a haircut. So I reached around and went, tap, tap. Then I hear this. Had no idea what it meant. Well, over time, these two POWs who were next to me, they'd been there for 2 years already. They taught me how to tap in the tap code. And that's how we communicated around buildings. And it's pretty easy. You arrange the alphabet in 5 groups of 5. By the way, you can't use Morse code because you can't make a dash. You can make a tap, but you can't make a dash through a wall. So they came up with a code from the prisoners of World War II in the Stalag Luft camps of Germany, who used this. You have 5 groups of 5, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, and you leave out K. That changes it. And if you need a K, you use the C. So you have 5 groups of 5 letters, 25. So the letter C is first group, C. The letter F, second group, F. And here's my name, MM. So we memorized all the names by initials. So you just I said Mike McGrath. And I joked that, we had TT for that, T for the, TD for today, and YM for YD for yesterday. And we laughed that we invented texting. Today's texting is using all of those abbreviations that the kids use today. And then we use GBU when we signed off. We decided GBU, which is God bless you. That's how we ended our thing. Or GBA, God bless America. We didn't have LOL then. We didn't know what LOL was, but we hadn't invented that one yet. But so that's how we communicated, and that was our lifeblood. Because here's what it sounded like. And then on the other wall you hear, and then you tap some more. And what this guy was doing, when he understood you get halfway through the word, he'd say, Roger. And then you get to halfway through the next word, Roger. So he's reading your mind and your sentences you're going along. You couldn't even finish a sentence because he understands what you're talking about. So pretty soon you're talking about menus and steak and ice cream, what we're going to have for dinner tonight. And then you're passing, Russian words and Spanish words and French words. Somebody's studying French down this end of the building, so you have to pass through the French words to him, and somebody down here. So you have a constant flow, but it's dangerous. You got to do it with a guy watching for guards. If they catch you, you're going to get tortured. So we used it for resistance of all types. And I told you the story real quickly. The guy that when they wanted to know about what he had in his house, he says, well, I have an electric banana peeler. And the Vietnamese are all fascinated about this electric banana peeler because said in America we never touch bananas. We put them in the electric banana peeler. So he gets back and here goes tapped in, goes through the camp, says, they're asking about what's in our house today. Well, as each guy went in for interrogation, they wanted to know about the house. And the first thing we talked about, well, my house has 2 electric banana peelers. The next guy said, well, we're very rich. We have 4 electric banana peelers, 1 in each room. And so by the end of the day, they were flooded with banana peelers. So that was the value of communication. You know what they're up to, what they're after, and how to build a resistance, and a common story that we could stick to in their interrogations. So communication was. Now,
Mike, could you do A, B, C, D again for me?
oh, well, sure. First group. A, B, C, D, E, A, B, C, D, E. So first group, and it continues, second group. And with a little practice, it comes faster and faster and faster. For my thing, I had American Football League Quo Vadis. I said, oh, American Football League, I like football. Quo Vadis, that's a Roman thing, right? Quo Vadis. So I said AFLQV. So it'd be AFLQV. So if those, Q is, that's Q. There's Q. That's Q. And my name, in other words, third group, second letter. Third group, second letter. And you get really fast at it. It's just easy. Now, and out of that, there was one guy that his sister had hearing problems and spoke sign language, American Sign Language. So this guy, on toilet paper, drew American Sign Language, and we passed it around the camp, and we all learned it. you know, like, you know, A, B, C, you know, D, E, you know, F, G, H, I, J, K, I, and then, you know, Y. So, and you know, MM, you know, that's my name, MM. There's MM. So you learn this, our code. Now, you mentioned Red McDaniels. In May 10th of 1969, 2 pilots in the room next to me in my camp, the Zoo Annex, escaped, Jermesi and Atterbury. Well, I was the communicator that climbed up on top of an 11-foot door. Even with my broken arm, I could hang on. Then I could communicate around the door, and I was the link to Red McDaniel in the next camp over an 11-foot wall. So he could climb up on the top of the building and a little window, and all I could see was his hand, and he's seeing me. So we were the comm link between his camp and mine. And we had good comm link right over the top of the Vietnamese. They couldn't see us. We were right over the top of the wall using mute code. And I said, Jermesi and Atterbury escaped last night. This may be our last comm. And I was right, because they captured him. They tortured Atterbury to death within a day. Jermesi survived the torture. Then they started systematically torturing us in all our rooms in both camps, breaking down our comm system and trying to determine who was the link between Red and me. Now, Red was hung by a hook and beat with a fan belt 100 strokes a day for like 6 days or so. He had like he had hundreds of welts across his butt and his back. And he never revealed my name. And I know this because I'm still alive. Now, he almost died. They did pull me out. They tried to break me. They beat me with a fan belt, but I wouldn't reveal the comm link. But they knew there was a comm link across the camp somehow because we had common information that they forced out of us. So Red is my hero because he didn't ever reveal my name.
Beautiful, sir. Beautiful. And what a great guy Red is.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love
Red
Red.
is tough. He.
Carrie, what else do you have in there?
Well, now we have some items that we can talk about.
Yeah, I think Mike has so much memorabilia. We should move on to
How
some
do you
of
wanna do that with the gimbal?
Why don't we?
We can do it right here.
Yeah.
Since you're all set
Why
up.
don't I cut for a moment?
I'm gonna cut.
We're going to capture